Hey, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hi folks, Dave with dbstechtalk, and today we are going to talk about the Hifiman Sundara. I want to thank Hifiman for sending over the Sundara for a review. Do greatly appreciate it. Hifiman, you rock. Alright, so the Hifiman Sundara. Is it the little brother to the Ananda? Is it the better value between the Sundara and the Ananda? Try to explain those at the end of the video, try to answer those questions. But first, we're here to talk about the Sundara. Now, it comes in a pretty standard, straightforward Hifiman box. Let's get that situated here so y'all can see it. And it has a frequency response of 6 Hz to 75 kilohertz, an impedance of 37 ohms, sensitivity of 94 decibels, and it weighs 372 grams. If you want to see those specs, there they are. I'm not going to open up the box. It's pretty straightforward. You just open it, take off the foam cover, and your headphones are inside there, along with a cable that is rubberized, kind of just typical Hifiman, other than that it's all black, and has a 1/4-inch adapter. The cables has L and R that are very visible and easy to recognize, so you can know which one is which for your ears. You get an owner's manual and some warranty information, and other than that, that's it. That's what's inside the box. It's very straightforward, very easy to know how to connect your Sundara and go get and play and sound. They are a little bit hard to drive with those specs of 37 ohms and 94 decibels of sensitivity, and so a amplifier is definitely recommended. You can run them portable, but you're not going to have really the dynamics and the slam and punch that the Sundaras can provide if you're running them portable. So I highly recommend a decent amplifier. If you are going to run them portable, get yourself a portable amplifier, something like a FIO A5 or something along those lines to be able to connect. All right, so the Hifiman Sundara. These are actually really well built. One of the better Hifimans, especially for the sub $500 price point that these come in at. They originally were, I believe, $500. Now they're at around $350, and I can say I'm actually very pleased with the build quality of Hifiman, and they don't feel cheap. They don't feel like they're going to break, and yeah. Good job, Hifiman. I actually like this. So the headband is the newer version that Hifiman has been using, or one of the newer versions. And I do wish I had a little bit more of wiggle room on the ears, and I wish it didn't make that creaking noise when you moved them. But other than that, I have no problems. You do get that little faux leather head strap, which could use a little bit more padding on there, but it's doable, and it spreads fairly decently. My only real complaint is the ear cups are actually a little bit on the small side, and I actually feel them on my ears. Now, I don't have massive ears, at least I didn't think I did, but these make my ears feel big when they're inside here, and so they're not cramped, they're just not comfortable, if that makes sense. Maybe I'm too used to to the Ananda, but either way, these just felt a little bit small. Clamp force is decent, did not have any problems with it, and overall, I mean, they're nice and light, and once you get them on your head, you pretty much forget about them. They're very comfortable. I do not have a problem. I like these Hifiman, I really do. All right. We're not here to talk about the design and fit and feel and all that kind of stuff. We're here to talk about how do they sound. When I first heard a Hifiman Sundara, I was at Oxpona 2019, and about as fast as they went on my head is about how fast they came off. They were bright and sharp, sibilant, and it felt like needles going into my ears. And I had to do a couple different takes with them and listen to them, and every single time I had the same impression. I was not impressed. And then we went to a couple different audio meets, and some people had brought Sundaras around to try out. And it didn't matter what amplifier and deck I had them on. I just didn't care for the Sundara. It just didn't jive with me. And so when Hifiman said, hey, would you like to review the Sundara? I was like, sure. Because I always want to review things, on my own gear. I always want to hear them on my own setup with my own music and in my own, rooms and all that kind of stuff. And so I kind of went into it with that skeptical, I don't know if I'm going to like these, but something to review. I'm happy to report these changed my mind. Now, I have heard that there is a slight change that Hifiman made, a slight revision. Not exactly sure what that revision was. I think it had something to do with the pads. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments, but these are a whole lot better than the ones I had heard before. All right, so with all that out of the way, amplifiers. Definitely recommended. Let's go over which amplifiers I've been using. So we have the Grace Design S-DAC balanced DAC into the 789 via balanced. We have a Mytek Liberty. We have a Bellari HA540 Mark II tube amplifier. And then we have a Gishelli Enog 2 Pro DAC with a Gishelli Archel amp, Archel 2 amp, and an Airish balanced amp. And those are the main amplifiers I've been using. And then also up top, we have the IFI Pro IDSD. And also way over here in the corner is a Burson Conductor 3X. And it's hit or miss with the Hifiman Sundara. They seem to be somewhat picky of DACs and amps. You put them on something that's a little bit sterile and a little cold, and you're going to have needles running through your ears. You put them with something that has a little bit of colorization, a little bit of warmth, and they come alive, and they are very enjoyable and pleasant. So just kind of depends on your source, and then also what kind of music you listen to. So with that being said, my favorite setups with the Sundara are the Mytek Liberty and the Gishelli Airish. The S-DAC balanced 789 was a little too sterile and was like pins and needles into my ears at times. And it sounded good with other music, but for the majority, it was not a very pleasant experience. Also, the Pro IDSD from IFI was very pleasant with the Sundara, and the Burson was a little too cold and was like pins and needles also. All right, so sound. Bass. The bass is detailed, has good, it's clean, clarity is there. And it has a lot of punch and a lot of fun dynamics. Very energetic. It's a good bass. I wish I had a little bit more sub bass. It does roll off just a little bit. But for the most part, the bass is right there. A little bit more of a mid bass prominence, it seems like. But it's not a overpowering bass, as it doesn't bleed into the mids or do anything of that sort. It's a very decent bass quality that has good punch and will get your toes a tapping. The mids. The mids have some cohesion problems for me. The lower end of the mids are nice and full, have good bass, or not bass, good body to them. And then as you go into the upper mids, they kind of climb and they'll become a little bit assertive and somewhat on the sharp side. And it can be a little bit on the aggressiveness, especially depending on which amplifier and DAC setup you're using. The other issue that I have in the mids is they have a graininess to them, somewhat of a harshness. They're not as clean as the bass was. And it just kind of had texture problems every now and then. It was a nice sounding mid, but at times it just sounded a little off. And then the tonality and timbre also struggle just a little. They have a little bit of a metallic sound to them, and things will sound artificial, especially guitars and pianos and some brass instruments and woodwind instruments will have a little bit too much raspiness to them, or just a little too much of the, like it's just a little bit off. And it just didn't sound accurate. So if you take like an HD 600 or a Hifiman Ananda and you play a song with an acoustic piano, it will sound natural. You'll get the thuds of the keys being pressed, and you'll get the decay of the key of the end of the note. On the Sundara, it kind of turns that piano sound and it makes it sound somewhat like an electric keyboard or an electronic piano instead. And it's just enough to make it, you're like, it still sounds good, but something's off. It just doesn't have that proper tonality and timbre to it. And it does that to guitars also. Sometimes some guitars, if they're playing in a higher register, will sound a little bit more like a banjo or a mandolin tone instead of a guitar tone. And it was just a little off-putting, but not enough to be annoying or a no-go for them. It was just a little bit of miss. The treble also climbs and has a little bit brighter tone to it, and it comes across in a little bit of a more assertive way for me. And now you may have a little different depending on your ears, but to me, they just seemed a little bit too bright at times. And at times they were a little bit sibilant. If you played the songs that were a little bit on the harsh side, a little bit on the sibilant side, these really revealed that. And it was just a little too fatiguing for me. But for the most part, the treble was fairly good. It extended well, had good air, good quality about it. It just had a little bit of an issue with sibilance. The details were there. Throughout the treble, the mids, and the bass, the detail were there. In the mids and in the treble, though, the resolution of those details wasn't quite as good. It did a little bit of, just wasn't quite as clean as I would like, and it just at times could come across in that harsher tone. Soundstage is on the intimate side. It's not as small and intimate as a HD 600, but the Sundara does have a smaller soundstage. And it was a little bit on the cramped side. Now, it isolated and separated out instruments very well, and you could definitely tell what each one was, and it had good layering and depth within the soundstage. It just all kind of seemed a little close and cramped. And it's not a bad soundstage. It was just a little not as large as I would prefer. So overall, I really do enjoy the Sundara. I think they're a very good headphone. They just have that little flaw with the tone and timbre in the mids, and then the resolution of the details is just a little bit smeared at times. And then you can have a little bit of moments of harshness and sibilance in the treble and mids. But other than that, they're a very good headphone, and especially for $350, I really enjoy the Sundara and highly recommend them, as long as you have an amplifier that will color the sound up just a little bit, warm it up a little bit. If you put it on a stereo amp, you're going to possibly get some ear bleeding going on. So, are they the little brother of the Ananda? Yeah, they are. They definitely are the little brother. You can hear some little bits of family in there, but it's almost like it's the little brother that's trying too hard to be like the big brother. And so it's like the little brother that wants to be recognized, wants to be just as good at all the sports and or singing or whatever the big brother is good at. And the Sundara is just trying too hard to be like the Ananda. And in the end, it just struggles a little bit to do it. The Ananda does everything better. In my opinion, it's just the overall more refined version of the Sundara. And the treble is smoother, has better details and better resolution. The mids are more even and cohesive and are better textured, have better tonality and timbre. And also they just have better details overall through the mids. And then the bass is actually more punchy and more fun on the Sundara, but the bass is more detailed and accurate, and you actually get more sub-bass extension on the Ananda. So the Soundstage is massively huge on the Ananda when comparing to the Sundara, and you also get better placement and just overall just a bigger depth and layering and better spacing on the Ananda. Also, the Ananda, everything just sounds bigger and larger, and you can place movements a lot easier on the Ananda. So between the two, which is the better value? Well, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a fun, more dynamic, punchy type of sound, and your budget is $350, I would get the Sundara. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more on the analytical side, a little bit more on the detailed, clean, clear, and you're going to be able to do some good critical listening and get accurate tonality and timbre, I would look at the Ananda. If I was going to purchase both and I had a budget that you could get either or, I would go with the Ananda. The Ananda is the better defined one. It is the better choice, in my opinion, of the two, that you just get the better overall experience. But that is not to say that the Sundara is not a good headphone. I thoroughly enjoy the Sundara, and I do greatly appreciate everything that I've gotten to experience with it, especially since my first experiences were not so great. So do I recommend the Sundara? Absolutely. It's a great headphone, and even with its little bit of flaws, I really do enjoy it, and I think that is a tremendous value at $350. This has been Dave with DBS Tech Talk. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere on the screen is a subscription link and notification bell. If you haven't already, please check those off. And then check out the links below for all kinds of information regarding playlists that were used in the review process, gear that was used, and all kinds of other things are down there. Also, how you can support the channel through Patreon and PayPal, and how you can contact me via email. Thanks, and have yourself a great day. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.